Welcome to the Nostalgia Test Podcast, the show where two longtime friends put their mainstream pop culture past to the ultimate test, the Nostalgia Test.
No worries, man. Let's do it again.
I feel like I've had 2 hours of sleep for the last 5 days.
I hear you.
All right,
are you double check that you are? Yeah, we are. Okay.
We're recording now.
Boom.
We're recording now. Here we go.
Yep.
I'm Dan Dissinger. I'm here in LA, and I'm here with my friend and co-host Manny Coelho in New York. Manny, what's up?
What's up? What's up? Hello, everybody. What's going on? Chilling over here in New York.
Chill, and you're chilling because it is cold over there.
Today it snowed. It snowed yesterday. A blizzard showed up, and then the sun came out. I think the world is coming to an end, and we're all just denying it, or just like we're just getting the signs. I'm waiting for toads to fall.
Oh, they're coming.
You got the hornets, the murder hornets.
Cannot
you
wait.
Got punch every bee in the face.
Oh my God!
Yes.
That brings us to today's episode. I mean, we are looking at and returning to the 2003 album "Harmful If Swallowed" by the comedian Dane Cook. His first album. Just for a little background on Dane Cook, for everybody from the Wikipedia page, Dane Cook is an American stand-up comedian and film actor. He's released 5 comedy albums: Harmful If Swallowed, Retaliation, Vicious Circle, Rough Around the Edges, Live from Madison Square Garden, and Isolated Incident. In 2006, Retaliation became the highest charting comedy album in 28 years and went platinum. He performed an HBO special in the fall of 2006, Vicious Circle, a straight-to-DVD special titled Rough Around the Edges, which is included in the album the same name, and a Comedy Central special in 2009 titled Isolated Incidents. He is known for his use of observational, often vulgar, and sometimes dark comedy. And he is one of the first comedians to use a personal webpage and MySpace to build a large fan base. He was insanely popular and then it fell off the face of the planet. But this album really...
Face of the planet.
Dude, I mean, right?
There's Dan with his notes, guys. Dan and his notes. All the facts come from Dan.
Facts!
Yeah, dude, talk about someone that was so, like, popular for a moment and how fast, like, it just went down. You're talking, like, stardom, was even dating Jessica Simpson and was in a movie with her, which was terrible. And then gone. Yeah. But there was also that like controversy of like him stealing jokes and stuff like that. Yeah,
they had the controversy between him and Louis C.K. About Dane Cook stealing a lot of jokes from Louis C.K. And then Louis C.K. had him on his show and they talked about it on the show. And then also Dane Cook's brother-in-law just stealing millions of dollars from him. So that happened, and he then had to send his own brother-in-law to jail. So there's a lot that, happened. And I went into a little Dane Cook hole last night, looking at like YouTube clips of other comedians talking about him and stuff like that. But I think the one thing I want to just first approach is we chose to listen to this album rather than watch the actual Comedy Central special. I mean, I didn't watch it. I don't know if you went back and watched it. No, because
this is what I wanted to talk about because I did both.
Okay, so I do remember the special a lot. Now, the reason I only listened to it is because when we used to listen to a lot of comedy, and we're going to talk about a lot of comedy on this podcast, but like when comedy was becoming bigger into my life, I remember I solely just listened to it most of the time, right? You buy albums when Tower Records was there, and the DVDs and the specials were in the albums, but I really did a lot of listening to comedy, so that's how I mainly remember this Dane Cook special and this album. But I do remember the special visually and like all the things he did on that too, and it was a big difference.
I'll tell you that I don't remember why. I'm sure it was you that got me into this, but God. I don't remember. My first encounter with him was the Comedy Central special. Yeah. So it was interesting to go and listen to it. First, listen to this album other than watching the album. Yeah. But I don't want to get too far ahead about how I feel about, I guess I could, this is what this podcast is about.
I mean, like, let it, dude. Like,
so basically, it's basically, as everybody knows, if you don't know Dane Cook, he's a very physical comedian. I would say someone that you would compare him to nowadays, it would be Maniscalco. How do you pronounce that guy?
Sebastian Maniscalco.
Yes. Very funny. You could listen to him, but when you watch him, it adds to the comedy.
Yeah.
The physical comedy is definitely huge with Dane Cook. And I thought while I was listening to the jokes, I distinctly remember how he told the jokes and what he was doing during the joke. And I could laugh a little bit even more because I remember what his facial expressions and just like how, like, you want to talk about physical, that guy dove onto the stage, off the stage, onto tables. Like, he wanted to be a rock star. He even opens up the Comedy Central one with like, I'm on the drums. Like, Dane Cook, his name's on the drums. He's on the table. He's like, he's wearing a tank top. It was crazy. His energy is insane. And I saw him live at Madison Square Garden.
Did we see him because I saw him twice. Did you go both times to the theater? Did you see him at the theater and then the Garden as well? Because I know we saw him at the Garden.
I saw him at the theater.
Yeah.
So I must have seen him twice.
Yeah, I remember that because we saw him at the theater. And then I think it had to been, a year later or something like that, too?
Yeah.
He's selling out Madison Square Garden.
That was insane. That was the full circle. That was that tour. His height of his popularity. The height of being very popular with college kids.
Huge. But I mean, there are a lot of things that when I was like listening to this album and just remembering how much these jokes were part of, like, they're so easy to remember and to retell, and they're so easy to kind of like jump into. Now I listen to a lot of comedy or watch a lot of comedy, and then comedy's just in our faces so much more. Comedians have podcasts. I mean, comedians are everywhere now, which is funny because that's the one thing, like, comedians, as I was watching some of these clips on YouTube, they didn't like about Dane Cook was that Dane Cook was like everywhere. He was online. He was doing like lots of meet and greets. He was doing all sorts of stuff, creating like a cult-like fan base online through MySpace when that was a thing. And now that's all comedians do. Like, comedians are all over the place. Social media, YouTube, podcasting, Facebook, Instagram. And it's funny, the backlash he got from that. Now, did he steal jokes?
I don't know. How do you prove that? Sometimes it's tough because, you know, if you all grow up around the same time or something's happening, for instance, I'm just going to kind of gear it towards my career now and my industry. We make a beer. We come up with a beer name. And sometimes you have the same name as a brewery down the block or in the same area because you kind of, not that you copied from that person, but like you kind of live in the same area. So you just think like, oh, you know, Long Island, Gold Coast. Oh, Gold Coast IPA. Oh, Gold Coast IPA. And then you're kind of arguing who came up with it first. Somebody copied off somebody. We didn't copy off somebody. We both read The Great Gatsby. We both grew up in a town with The Great Gatsby. So obviously it's in our brain. So like there are some jokes that happen that you even see comics nowadays that you're like, oh, I heard that joke, but I heard it differently. Now, if you're following the joke word verbatim, okay, you're taking away that guy's joke. But how do you claim that you're the only one that knows how to joke around about a certain topic? Now, I'm sure there's going to be all these COVID-19 jokes. So
my God.
Can't ever say another COVID-19 joke as a comic because one comic came up with it. You know, I get it if you have the same ingredients and your recipe is the same, okay. But like the topic is going to be well known around the world. It's a little tough to say that, oh, he stole. I mean, that's a very harsh statement, and you got to be able to prove that. And then once you put that out there nowadays, that's major. You could ruin a whole person's career.
Well, we saw that happen with Joe Rogan and Carlos Mencia. I mean, I think Joe Rogan was the only comedian to actually have the guts to like literally like call him out, get up on stage. Like, I mean, he literally did it. And I think that's the thing about Joe Rogan in this situation. Like, he knew and he literally had the proof. So I think like, do jokes subconsciously come into people's minds that they've heard? I think so. Are some comedians going to steal someone's material? I think it probably happens. But at the same time, that's a whole other discussion, right? But like,
Yeah.
With Dane Cook, what's funny about him that I remember, and as I was listening to the album and I could see him physically doing the jokes, there are no punchlines to his jokes because they're just like craziness. Like that's the thing I realized, or like that's why listening to his album so weird. When I first learned of him and I watched and I listened, I was like, I thought it was so funny. Now I'm like, okay, this is funny, but like, where's the punchline or like the
There isn't.
storytelling? It's like a lot of screaming and stuff like that.
A lot of repeating. A lot of repeating. Oh, he almost repeats a little too much, where it's like, okay, that was funny then, but now that I'm really thinking about it now, like you could have said it one last time.
Yeah.
It was like he was repeating to be a filler.
Yeah.
Again, this is one of his first albums, so he was training, I guess, to
one of his first albums. But one thing I just want people to understand is that Dane Cook was not an overnight success. Everyone was like, oh my God, Dane Cook is so famous now. It's like he had been doing comedy since like 1990 or whatever. And so before Harmful of Swallow came out, that's like 13 years of comedy. Now, I don't know anything about being a stand-up comedian, but 13 years is 13 years, right? Like that's a long time. That's a lot of time to like start comedy and then get to that point and then become famous. And it's not like when you get famous, you're going to say no. He came from a poor family, all these things. So there's a lot about Dane Cook's history that plays into him wanting to be as big as he possibly wanted to be. We see that. Plus, I mean, you know, there's been a lot of big comedians, you know. So what were some of your thoughts as you were listening? Like, how were you feeling? Like, or what were the things you were thinking about? And did you enjoy it? Do you feel like as much as you used to enjoy? Or even when was the last time you even listened or heard or watched this?
Okay, so one thing is I haven't listened to it in a very long time, but I do think about this album and some of the jokes. I would say, quote some of the jokes every once in a while, and I've been doing it since then. But yet I don't really think about it. I don't really miss Dane Cook. I kind of got over him pretty quickly. Just the way his life went, it sucks. Now that you're saying the hole that you went into, that what happened, and like there's other things that happen in celebrity, you know, you become this whole big thing. And I'm sure he wants to go back to just being a stand-up comedian, but then once you get to a certain level, then you have to be in sitcoms that sucked, and he probably had like bad choices being made by his agents or whatever it may be. But I do have to say, I do repeat Christ checks. I repeat punch a bee in the face. You know, I remember him doing the snake thing, and then like the cheetah thing. So like a lot of it, yeah, I enjoy, but I don't ever think, oh, if I'm sitting around, I'm like, oh, why don't let's do a comedy album? That doesn't come up.
No.
The only reason why I listen to him is because you were like, let's do an episode on it. So that's the only reason why. Weird, but yet I quote him and of course Mitch Hedberg, just because like it is very observational. Like the floor on the parking lot, the punch every bee in the face, because people talk about bees, and especially recently with the stupid hornets. There's definitely things that very mainstream, very basic, and he covered them. And like, you know, or like, let me get my shoes. Where are my shoes? You know, with the car accident.
That was
like,
a good bit.
Every time I look for my shoes, I say it that way. Where are my shoes? You know. So yes, he's definitely in my brain. It's back here somewhere. You know. I say it. I don't know if anybody, you know, my wife and I love Dane Cook together, and we would listen and watch him for a while. So she knows the jokes that I'm making. I don't know if anybody else does, but I definitely do say his jokes or repeat this album specifically.
Yeah. One thing is like how different the album is from the actual special that was on Comedy Central. There are jokes that aren't even on the CD. The Christ checks, that's not on the CD. When he does the impersonation of the alien from the movie Alien, that's not on the CD, which is obvious because it's a visual.
No.
The thing on the cross, that's not on the album because that's a visual. The snake, that's a visual. There's like so many visual jokes that he does, so much like physical comedy that wasn't on the album. It was so weird to experience because even the album was physical. So I was just like waiting, you know, like when he does that bit about the car accident and he's like, hi, and he's like, I was thinking in the sign and all the physicality. I mean, I'm doing things in a like listening meeting.
Yeah.
Like no one can see me, but I'm sitting there like my arms and he's like, and his like facial expressions just change over and over again. When you hear it, it's like,
Exactly. And I think that album didn't work. I mean, I don't think, yeah, it's tough. I mean, that's why it's called stand-up comedy. I think a comedy album is different than a stand-up comedy album. An Adam Sandler comedy album is a different type of comedy album than a stand-up comedy that's just being recorded. Because, like,
Yes.
a lot of stand-up comedies that are physical, you need to watch it. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Even the opening of the Comedy Central versus the album
So
is different. He walks in, he's crazy, he talks about, like, let's hear it! And he compares comics and rock stars. And then just like the alien part, the Christ checks, the you want to be a snake, the D&V, like everything needed to be seen. Everything needed to be seen. You need to watch this album.
Yeah.
First I listened to it and then I watched it. And I was like, even while I was listening to it, I'm like, no, we're missing Christ checks. We're missing the whole being Catholic and going to church and doing that. You know,
I do that all
what is this? You know, and I was like, you need to see that to get the joke. Because if I said that to you, you'd be like, what did he do that everybody's laughing about?
Yeah.
You know, there's a thing Mitch Hedberg did when he did Mitch Altogether. And he was like, oh, the people who are listening to this, they didn't get what just happened because something happened physically. And he realized it was funny to those people because it was physical. And Mitch Hedberg wasn't a physical comic. So you could listen to Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah.
But he did one thing, and he actually had to tell the album, like, you know, this wasn't for the CD joke. But Dane Cook is made for visual.
Oh,
like, dude, he was laying on the floor.
Yeah.
Laying on the floor, and he's like, he even talked to the camera at one point.
I remember
hello,
that. Yeah.
This is my comedy special. Won't you join me?
You
know, he's like, what are you doing, guys? Making black tar heroin? Like, it needed to be seen.
Yeah.
The jokes were good, but not unless you've seen him before. Like, if it was the first time you heard him, you'd really need to be into him. I don't know if that would grab you.
It was hard just to listen to because I see what you're saying. Like, you would have to be really into him as a person, his personality without seeing him. I was just like, I don't know if I can keep going. You know, that whole story about when he was sharing the house with his girlfriend. That's not on the album. That's in the special.
It's weird that it's not in there.
And given the finger, because that's not on it.
Yeah.
Like, that's on the album, but it doesn't make sense because it's like you can't see what he's saying. You know what I mean?
I think it was not in the special because it's a Comedy Central special. I mean, you can't have the finger in the Comedy Central special.
Oh, so like on my DVD, there's two cuts. There's the one that aired, and then there's the one that didn't air. There's one that's an uncut, unaired version. So even that, like, even when you do the Mitch Hedberg album, right? The Mitch Hedberg album, like Mitch Altogether or whatever, there's two versions of the Comedy Central special. There's a 75-minute version that's like he goes all the way through, gets like no reactions from people, goes into old material, and then now that he's done, he's like, I'm gonna do 25 more minutes or whatever, and he keeps going. And so like he does this whole thing, which is like, other than that, one of the more genius like acts I've ever seen. But like Dane Cook, what I realized was, and I'll say my first point, had no punchlines, has zero punchlines.
No.
And it's
no punchlines at all.
Observational humor that was really weird. You know, when you hear it, you're just like, okay, yeah. Like, I didn't want to be a fireman. I wanted to be a spray man. And I'm like, yeah, that's funny. But
no,
like,
I thought that was funny. He's like, I make it look like rain. You felt like rain. So I thought that was funny because I was like, when you're a kid, you were like, I'm the best at this, right? But you needed to see it because it's like that was his punchline. His punchline was the physicality of it. When you heard the joke and then you see it, that was his exclamation point on the joke. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to act funny. I'm going to do this thing. And then I'm going to move on to the next joke. So that was his punchline. We were asking where his punchline is. His punchline is in the physical act of that joke. So you really need to watch him to find this all together good.
But see, but that's the thing. Like, if I compared him to another physical comedian, like you said, like Sebastian Maniscalco, right? But I still think with Sebastian Maniscalco, when I hear him, it's funny because he's got really good vocal inflection. Like, he does a joke about Vegas when the guy comes out with 4 Band-Aids on his foot, and he's like, what is under there? He's like, after the first Band-Aid, isn't it a hospital visit? You know what I mean? It's like, there's a punchline there. But with Dane Cook, the punchline, you're right, it's like, it's the physicality. That can only take you so far, I think, as you think about where the actual punchline can go, but also like what type of long lasting value that it's going to have as well, right? Because it's like, it's not timeless. You can't have like a non punchline joke that's timeless.
Yeah, and then you also have to like, it's tough to think about this nowadays, but the medium changes all the time. So it's like, well, now you got people who just listen. There's people who like to watch. I mean, back then, I guess you didn't really think about it. It's a Comedy Central special, and then it's like, oh, but it's also an album that I could listen to. But the sales did well because he was really well liked visually.
Oh, yeah.
And I would love to go see him. You do well by watching him. You usually go see stand-up comedy, but again, I would not. I don't know, man. It's tough to how I feel about this album. It's tough how I feel about him. Like,
Yeah.
like you're saying, like, I think it was good in the time that it came out, but there's been so many more evolution in the physical comic that also knows how to tell a joke or keep an audience going, even if you
Yeah.
didn't hear him. Like you said, Sebastian is a perfect thing. Like, watching Sebastian is an added bonus. Listen to him, you still find certain
Yeah.
jokes funny. There are certain jokes, like when he does the company joke, you need to watch him do like the
Yeah.
whole thing about his parents, right? That doesn't work unless you've seen him. But
Yeah.
there are certain ones that I've seen that I'm like, oh, he didn't
Yeah.
need to be seen for that joke. But
Yeah.
Dane Cook's, man, watch this whole album, and you listen to the album, then you watch it, and you're like, I had to watch it just because I'm like, dude, at the end of just listening to it, I was like, this is not that good. But then I'm like,
Dude,
and then
but
I'm
that was
like,
the thing.
yeah. Oh, wait, let me watch it. And I was like, okay, this is good, but only because the punchline is his physical acting. That's what it is.
His comedy, and as you're saying this, I was thinking about his comedy is a you had to be there comedy. You had to be there.
Yep.
You had to
No,
be
you
there
did.
to see it. Like, you can't just retell it. Like, it's just like,
No.
bro, you had to be there, bro. It's like when you go
No.
out, you get wasted, and something stupid happens, and then you try to retell it, and someone's looking at you like
Not
you're
as funny.
insane. You're like, nah, yeah, you had to be there, bro.
Well, no, that's the ultimate thing about this album. It goes back to the whole thing about this podcast, the nostalgia test. Like, it stuck there. It did not leave, in my opinion, where it was. And I actually, yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I think I feel a little bit like, oh, it's great. Like I said, I do repeat some of the jokes, but they're not like amazing jokes. They're just very like bleh. And only really works, like you said, like you can't retell that joke unless you have the physical comic like in you to be able to retell it. I guess I could do it because I get very physical, but like, again, people even listening to us right now, they wouldn't understand it unless they're watching us move our hands right now.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
it's like watching a New Yorker tell a joke. Like, a lot of it is to do with the way they look, and yeah, it does it. And maybe that's why he didn't last as long as.
What's funny is like comparing him to other comedians we were into at that time. Like Dane Cook and Mitch Hedberg were probably at that point like the two biggest comedians we were like into, right?
Yeah.
Mitch Hedberg, rest in peace, one of the greatest, in my opinion, greatest comedians, just greatest writers. I mean, unbelievable writer. His jokes, when I heard them for the first time, I was like, this is the type of stuff that's going to be funny forever. And I was like, Dane Cook was that moment. When like Mike's Hard Lemonade was big? That's Dane Cook. Dane Cook is just like, yo, Mike's Hard Lemonade, this is great. A couple of years later, it's like, I don't know, man. I think that thing's getting
Yeah, man. No, I agree. I totally agree. Dane Cook was good in college. No, that's it.
He was great because it was like you didn't have to think.
He was a wine cooler. He was Zima. He was Mike's Hard Lemonade.
You didn't have to think about it. It was just like, oh, like when he says punch you in the face, and then like it's hilarious, but it's just like punch what in the face? Like, you don't get it. It's like, yeah.
Like,
well,
why is it funny? Like, I'll punch every bee in the face, and you're like, okay.
There were jokes that were uncomfortable on the album. The one pick a number, I was like, why is this ending the album? Like, why is this ending this album before this bonus track? Like, this is
the bonus track was a lot better than the last album.
Well,
the
the
last
bonus track,
thing.
apparently, as I'm looking up on my little research here, before this version produced by Comedy Central Records came out, there was a different version of this album that was independently produced by Cook himself that contained a track lampooning Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, rest in peace. This track was removed for the official CD/DVD release. To fill the gap in the missing track, the bonus track was added in this cut of the album.
I
So,
like the bonus track. That was one of the better jokes of all the
bro,
track.
thank God the bonus track existed, because to me, as the album kept going and I just let it run, I didn't skip anything. I was just like, I really want to get to that bonus track because that's really one of the best stories. It's hilarious. Actually, that is a really funny story. And
That's the manager one, right?
yeah, dude, that's the manager one when he woke up late.
Being in the video store,
Yeah.
and then he woke up 5 hours late. Dude, it was the best story. It was hilarious. That was a really good story. The last one was terrible. Pick a number, please. Was terrible.
Yeah, and then it's like you're ending on homophobia.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
he used he
Yeah.
used that word a lot. It was funny again how the world has changed on how you use. I guess I understand that all albums are just jokes and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's just wow. Yeah,
But there was no reason for it. Like, that's what was so weird. The Pick a Number Please track, that made it, but the Steve Irwin track doesn't make it? Come
yeah.
on. Like, there wasn't even a joke there. Like,
No,
there wasn't even
he
a
didn't.
joke.
It ended. And he was just kind of like, I'm out. Like he
Yeah.
kind of just left as soon as. It was
Like,
weird. It
it
was
was
weird. It
weird.
was
I've never
usually
heard.
you end with a huge laugh, and he just kind of just like walked away.
But you see, he ends with a huge laugh on the DVD because he does the finger thing. And that's how
Yes.
he ends the special, by like doing the finger bit and it being crazy. And
Yeah.
then he acts like how everyone is feeling or something, I think, at that point, or whatever he does. Like,
Yeah, he
that
does.
ends like on such a high note
And he takes off his
visually.
shirt. Yeah, he goes nuts.
Yeah, because that's
He
the
goes
isn't that the
nuts.
one where he shows like how people fight or something like that? Doesn't he do a whole bit about different ethnicities fighting?
Yeah,
I
dude,
think, right?
it's awesome. He does like the shoes, the girl in the shoes dancing with like fuck guys, fuck guys.
Oh
You
my
know, like
God.
the jokes are there are certain ones that are funny, but again, he's like you'll never hear of a guy like let's go just dance, let's go dance,
But
let's stand around a circle in front of our bags and dance. You know, like it was funny, but
that part was
you
funny
had to
because
watch it.
it's his voice. There are things about his
Yeah,
voice that I love when he's like, hey, Mike,
he's like yeah,
tonight,
he's like
tonight,
tonight,
I gotta dance, bro.
no girls tonight,
No chicks, no, I gotta dance. Like,
let's
and
dance.
it was just the way he does things. Like, his voice was really great, but a lot of the times it was on the like listening just to the album just didn't cut it. Did you have any high points on the listening to the album that you thought like, yes, this right here is why I like this album, I used to listen to it? We both agreed the bonus track was just like, to me, the highlight of the actual album, I think.
You need to listen to the bonus track. I agree. I totally agree. BK Lounge is funny.
BK Lounge is funny. It's classic.
That's a classic one. The car accident one, Wear My Shoes,
Yeah.
obviously, really funny. Punch the
Mhm.
shark in the face, the
Okay,
shark story.
that was
That's pretty funny. Just want to dance, really funny, both visually and I
Yeah.
kind of got it. And then the bonus track. Other than that, all okay.
Like, Don't Tickle Me was funny. It didn't hit me the same as like when I like first heard it, but I know
No.
visually the Don't Tickle Me joke is ridiculous. But I feel like comedy has to be able to live audibly and visually. Even though Mitch Hedberg wasn't a physical comedian, because he's so understated, he was doing something physical at the same time, because he just like would stand there like just this guy standing on the stage. There was something being done that in the not anything happening, where like
Yeah.
Dane Cook, everything is happening, but like to listen to it is almost like I have no clue if I'm enjoying this anymore. I felt like
I don't know.
I feel like I need to drink like a natty light in order to like really like that. I was just like, do I want to do that right now?
I struggled through it, so unfortunately,
Oh
I mean,
God.
I guess this is it. This is it. Did it pass your test,
I mean,
the nostalgia test?
I guess what I'll say is this. It's been a long time since I've listened to this album. I guess because I'm listening to so many other things, like comedy-wise, but also podcasts as well. And then I started getting into other comedians like Bill Hicks and after Mitch Hedberg, and like I was listening to a lot of Bill Hicks, and then Bill Burr, and
Oh yeah.
Lewis Black, and Brian Regan. I mean, there's so many other comedians I'm listening to right now, and like Kathy Madigan and stuff. But like Dane Cook, I feel like for me will always have that special nostalgic place. I think it doesn't pass the nostalgia test in a way that it's going to be good. It is just nostalgic to me because it was like my like introduction, other than like the Steve Martin album, which my parents had on vinyl, Get Small, which is like unbelievable. Other than that, it was a comedian that was of my time that I was like, this guy is like is my comedian. Like this is a comedian from my time. And then seeing him live and going like, I'm going to this guy to see him live. It was the first large like live comedy event I've ever been to. So I feel like it fails the nostalgia test, and it's being something that I would say I would only listen to it for nostalgia reasons. Watching it, maybe, but even that too, I don't have the pull to do that on a regular basis or to tell people you have to watch this. I think it's just a nostalgic type of moment. It's very of the early 2000s, and I don't think it can get past that part. So I'd say no, it doesn't pass the nostalgia test. It is, but it also doesn't fail both tests. Like take off your pants and jacket. I think it still has it still has replay value in the nostalgic sense, but not in the
Okay.
regular sense.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely don't think it lasted. It's stuck back there to remind us of the time and just remind that we did used to think it was funny, or I used to think it was funny. I could laugh at certain things, and I guess I'm more laughing about the fact that I thought that was funny back then. I definitely was surprised on how I didn't find it as funny as I thought I was going to. And
Right?
I was like, oh, I'm going to crack up and I'm going to love it. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, no. And maybe that's why you don't really hear them. I think, comics that stand the test of time are ones that are amazing. We could be totally wrong about Mitch Hedberg. I don't think we are.
I do not think
that.
No.
I think when we do that episode, I already know what my answers are going to be, but I still can't wait to put it to the test. But yeah, with this one, I think it just kind of lives in the year that it came out. It lives in that time.
Yeah. 3 years after we graduated high school, that's what it lives in.
Yeah.
Which, if I went back to that time, 3 years after I graduated high school, I think I could see why I totally enjoyed Dane Cook for a lot of different reasons.
Absolutely.
Sitting in a Tower Records parking lot till like midnight, just trying to like hang out on Long Island, because in the suburbs, what the hell else are you gonna do? Yeah, it definitely has that mark of the early 2000s and my period of my life, I feel like, and it just won't get past there, I think.
No, I won't. I definitely think it stays there.
Yeah.
But if you are going to listen, just watch it. I think you could.
Yeah.
You'd appreciate it more if you watch it. So if anybody who's out here
Yeah.
listening to us and you do want to check it out, just because, watch the album. Do not listen to it, because you're just going to waste your time. Because if you've never seen Dane Cook, other than being in the worst sitcoms ever and rom-coms, you need to just watch this album. It is good then, but it's only going to it's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to become a fan of his. You're just going to be like, oh, it was good.
I think if you watch Harmful If Swallowed, it definitely would be something to kind of consider watching, but I still think it's a very nostalgic early 2000s thing. Just the delivery of the jokes, the way he is, the everything about the early 2000s, I feel like he encapsulates in everything he did. And I don't think like you can get out of that. And actually, to tell you the truth, and like I don't know if I would ever revisit much of his other work after that too, even though like it was so popular. I don't know. There are moments on those albums that I'm just like, would I go back and listen to Retaliation and stuff like that? Because I have that too, I think, somewhere. I don't know, because I don't really even remember a lot of what he even did at the live performance. But he did have that crazy HBO special, which made him even more popular. Not HBO special, he had like a series or something where he was traveling with the people from the tour, I think, right? Wasn't there some sort of tour thing he did on HBO?
Yeah, Gary Goldman was in that and stuff.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he did an HBO special.
Yeah.
He did he made them do some crazy things.
Yeah. So, if you're going to check out Dane Cook, make sure you're watching him. It definitely will make you understand what was so good about him, but I don't think it's something that I would say gets out of that nostalgic early 2000s space for me.
Nope.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Nostalgia Test. We look forward to another episode coming soon. Manny, any final words?
Punch every bee in the face.
There you go, everybody. Punch every bee in the face.
So, and Christ checks. Start
Christ.
your day the holy way.
Everybody, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please subscribe to the Nostalgia Test podcast to know when new episodes drop. Don't forget to leave us 5 stars and a positive review so more people can find the podcast. Share your thoughts and memories on today's topic on our Twitter @NostalgiaTest and on Instagram @TheNostalgiaTest. Tune in next time because you never know what pop culture will pop up on The Nostalgia Test.